My name is Hector Rodriguez. We're here with Dave Vesser and books by DC Vesser. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing great, Hector. How are you today?
Not too bad. It's been a while since we've been on film, but here we are.
Long, yeah.
Yeah, but we're here today. We're going to get this done. We got a couple topics to discuss with you today. Dave's got you've got a book that's back in edit, and waiting for approval for that, and be out somewhere around May. I'll let Dave talk about that a little bit. We established a blog spot for you. Mm-hmm. You've been busy on that. We've been getting some views. And we want to talk about some other things, what's going around the world maybe.
Good.
And we'll go from there. So let's start with your book. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we started out with Don't Let Them Win. That was my first book. And I decided a couple of things. One thing, I needed to change publishers, and I did that. Okay, the first publishing company I was with wouldn't make me quite happy as I wanted to be. So I found another company that is doing a very good job for me. Page Publishing. I'll say the good words, but I won't necessarily talk about the bad stuff here. Page Publishing and I are now in the business of doing books together. So they're republishing my first book, and we've changed the name a little bit. We're now calling it More Than Don't Let Them Win. There's just a little bit more added to the book. Same topic, same principles, same policies, same everything. It's just a different cover, different name, and different publisher. Again, that's Page Publishing, PAGE Publishing.com. As Hector said, we started a blog spot. It's dcvesser.blogspot.com. If you're interested in reading some of our blogs, and I'll tell you a little bit about what the blogs are about. If you're paying attention to the news, just the other day, Thursday, we had Blandensburg World War I Peace Cross. It's a public monument. It is in Blandensburg, Maryland. The Supreme Court reviewed whether or not that cross needs to come down as a legal entity in Blandensburg, Maryland. So we've had the Supreme Court hearing of it, and we just don't have the Supreme Court judgment on it yet. The other blogs include things like Miss Ginsburg's health issues, I guess, and whether or not she's competent to remain in the Supreme Court. We talk about several of the amendments, some of our constitutional rights, conservative agenda. And the biggest thing I think I want to talk about, the most important to me, is we all complain about the troubles of the world right now, and everyone has an idea about what our government is doing, the right and the wrong things we're doing, but no one seems to want to do anything about making these things work better. We talk about what's wrong, but we don't try to fix the problems or the issues, resolve those issues. I think that's important. So as citizens of America, I think that we need to do the right thing as well as complain. We also need to go out and do something about it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but those are kind of the key points we want to hit today, I think.
So, he's talking about his books, the books that he's got out now. You can go online to dcvesser.com. We've got the books there on sale. You can get a signed copy for yourself or as a gift. You can also go out to, as Dave mentioned, dcvesser.blogspot.com. He's got a list of interesting topics on there if you haven't had a chance to go and read on there. And then talking about a little about the most recent, news with the cross, or what they presume as to be. We were just having a conversation before we started filming, and interestingly enough, I'm learning something new every time I sit down with Dave. But you were talking about the words, separation of church and state. Can we reiterate some of that? I thought that was an interesting point that maybe you could share with us.
Thanks for bringing that back up, Hector. I guess I'd like to talk about that a little bit. I think, well, number one, I know that the education system that we have is not the greatest in the world right now, because we've allowed our democratic society to kind of take over there, where I believe, it's not my right to say a lot about this, but I believe that the government should not tell the educators how to educate. But where we're falling back on our responsibilities as citizens, we're not paying attention to the most important things that we have to learn. One of the things that we should learn in our school system is we should learn our history. Learn the history that actual history, and we've all served in military and various businesses of police officers, first responders, educators, farmers, you name it. Everybody contributes one way or another, but we're not learning our geography, and we're not learning our history. We're not learning our constitutional rights and our Declaration of Independence, things like that. They're going by the wayside. And one thing that we hear a lot about, and we spend a lot of time and effort and money resolving church and state issues. We should never have to resolve church and state issues because they're non-issues. As we were talking earlier, just before we started filming this morning, there's a lot of talk about separation of church and state. And those people that talk about separation of church and state, they talk about it as a constitutional issue. There is nowhere in the Constitution of the United States of America that states anything about separating church and state. So as far as I'm concerned, if there's no separation of church and state, then we should be able to have memorials for our fallen heroes and those people that deserve some kind of notoriety after death. There should be no, trying to say this is in as best way I can without getting into trouble here legally, but there should be no concern about why is that church symbol standing out there in Blandensburg, Maryland. It's just a cross. It's a secular device it was the style of the times. It's just like, take, for example, well, Hector and I are both retired Marines, and I'm going to tell all you retired Marines out there perhaps something you don't know. That blood stripe on the corporal's trouser, that was not bloodshed of Chapultepec like everybody believes it to have been. Bloodshed of Chapultepec didn't even happen for about 50 years after the so-called blood stripe was put on the trouser. That blood stripe is there because it's a sign of the times. It was the style in the day. When we put that stripe on that trouser, every European gentleman on the continent of Europe had a stripe down their tuxedo trouser leg. It was style of the time. Just like the style of the time back at the end of World War I was to put a religious-looking monument up, and that's all it is. There are 4 words etched in the stone of the cross. None of those words have anything to do with anything other than valor, courage, commitment, duty, responsibilities. There's no religious anything on there. It's a secular device, and that's about all I can say about it. Without having the Supreme Court on my the Supreme Court decision on my side to kind of validate and support what I'm saying here. We'll see sometime in June what the Supreme Court decides as a result of the monument at Blandensburg, Maryland.
Some very interesting topics. Again, you can get out on dcvesser.blogspot.com to visit some of and read some of his blogs that he's got out there. He's got plenty more. I've seen a list of titles that he's got, and there's plenty of them. So be sure to reply. You can also go to his YouTube channel as well. You can find that on the webpage. It's dcvesser.com. And again, like I said, you can also purchase his books online on his website as well. You can visit him on Facebook. He's also on Instagram as well. You can go to his page and get to either one of those social media sites and reply. He loves to get comments.
I like comments, yes, and I'll respond to those comments.
He does, yeah. I
was out of town a weekend or so ago, and I didn't get as quickly back to some people as I wanted to, but I did have some questions and some concerns. I try to answer those within about 24 to 48 hours, but if I'm not doing it that quickly, it's because I'm visiting my very best friends on the planet, and they get the full amount of my attention when I'm there. So I'll get back to you as soon as I can, I promise.
Again, thank you very much for joining Dave and I here at Books by DC Vesser video blogs, per se. We're on episode 5. Stay tuned. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.